Okay guys, this is a killer compilation. So I've done all the work. I've pulled together a ton of the incredible stuff that's coming out of the recent Epstein release, and I put it all here together for you. So please share, subscribe, and absolutely comment down below. This one's a doozy. You don't want to miss it. Okay, so you're wondering where all the trans madness came from? Hardly organic now, was it? Well, we get some answers in the old files. So here we have Robert Trivers, a Harvard biologist, in just one of his emails to Jeffrey. And he's talking stuff here that's pretty sick. And the thing is that this guy, he was thrown out of his university, suspended in 2014. And in a 2015 interview with Reuters, Trivers called Jeffrey a person of integrity and did not see Epstein's acts as so heinous, because by the time girls are 14 or 15, they're like grown women were 60 years ago, he said on the record. And he also blew about Epstein and how great he was and how what a real pleasure he was and a lot of other stuff. But let's look at his content in this email. Now, I won't read this out, but this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. This is how the elites think. And here's another one I won't read out, but you get the idea. And I will read out this piece. By the way, we are now pushing the intervention earlier. Oh, I bet you are. So you notice your 3-year-old son has trans tendencies? So now you intervene with hormones. I'd be frightened to do that, but who knows? What a sick puppy, eh? And of course, we know many cases of the elites and the billionaires. This is Tablet Magazine, quite a few years ago, 2022, setting up foundations, funding, and the media, of course, as well, to get the whole trans thing as widely spread as possible. It's a social contagion run pretty much from tops down. Now, another factor, of course, in their zeal in this perverse matter is that the average trans person, as they ruin their lives with all the operations and medications, has been estimated to be worth perhaps up to $1 million per life ruined. So there's a lot of profit on the table too. Now, a shout out here to Norman Finkelstein, a Holocaust background survivor person, and he basically dealt with this guy, Trivers, in no uncertain terms, calling Alan Dershowitz a pedopist and saying Trivers should be ashamed for defending them, and both should be strangled instead, apparently. But anyway, that's what's in the Epstein files. Good job, Norman. But let's move on quickly from the trans debacle to this human debacle here, Mr. Gates. And of course, plenty in the latest release, right, about this guy. And here they are, all connecting together, particularly interested in domestic health and neurotech brain science, yeah? And this is 2017, long after Epstein was convicted for child molesting type stuff. But that doesn't bother Billy when he's getting involved with the big finance to profiteer on people's health. And here we have JP Morgan in the room, yeah. We got Tony Blair, we got Billy Boy, and Boris Nikolak. And they're all talking about a panel discussion on global health investment fund and impact investing. So all the elites, all the banksters, together with the child trafficker, right, scheming around exploiting health dollars. And of course the World Health Organization. We can't leave those guys out, can we? Not after the big pandemic. Well, here they are in 2015, preparing for pandemics. So we have Gatesy, Epstein, and all the usual characters. Please find attached a draft agenda for the meeting on preparing for pandemics as requested. Let's discuss next steps. For example, how to officially involve the WHO and ICRC, i.e. co-branding. Best regards, and I hope we can pull this off. But this is a classic released just yesterday from Sayer G. So I'm going to briefly go through it. This is the bombshell in the Epstein files. The blueprint for a 20-year financial architecture designed to turn pandemics into a profit center. Offshore vaccine funds, pandemic reinsurance triggers, donor-advised fund structures designed for profit under the cover of charity, simulation programs. Remember Event 201, eh? In 2019. career pipelines into pharma and the World Economic Forum. All built in the years before COVID-19, all running through Gates, JP Morgan and Epstein. We now have the documents. So let's have a look at the first bombshell. So Mary Erdoes, CEO of Morgan's $2 trillion asset management division, outlines a Gates-linked donor-advised fund. However, we should be ready with an offshore arm, especially for vaccines. So she got in with a convicted sex offender, juvenile trafficker, to start organising for pandemic profiteering. And we all know what happened after. Let's go on. A bombshell 2. So same email chain, and Epstein writing to them, the tension is making money from a charitable org, therefore the money-making parts needs to be arm's length. Right? So this architect of this structure, convicted of sex crimes against minors, is explicitly acknowledging that the vehicle is designed to generate profit under the legal cover of charity. Bombshell 3. 3 years before the COVID flu, Boris Nikolic, Bill Gates' chief science and technology advisor, emails Epstein and Gates about donor-advised funds and rights. It might be a great path forward for some key areas such as energy, pandemic, etc. These scamsters, look what they put us through. Pandemic listed like energy, a standing investment vertical, not an emergency, a portfolio strategy. All in the files. Bombshell 4. The parametric trigger. Swiss Re reinsurance team, we need to join developing health products, did one for pandemics, helped develop parametric trigger. A parametric trigger is a financial instrument that automatically pays out when a pandemic is declared, developed by someone in Epstein's career placement network. 6 months later, the World Bank issued its first ever pandemic catastrophe bonds, structured by Swiss Re with exactly these triggers. COVID flu was a listed peril. Bombshell 5. 5 years after Epstein's conviction, an agreement letter addressed to William H. Gates states that Gates specifically requested that Jeffrey Epstein personally serve as the representative of Boris Nikolic in Gates' organization. Gates waives conflicts of interest, provides broad indemnification in writing. He had access to every law firm, every advisor, every institution on earth. He chose a registered sex offender and put it on paper. This is big, guys. This is where COVID flu essentially came from, at least the worst parts of it. Now the question you weren't supposed to ask, and I have to read this out. Nobody builds a fire station after the fire. What these documents reveal is a fire station built beside a factory that stores accelerants owned by the same people who wrote the building code. Patents, simulations, reinsurance triggers, offshore vehicles, career pipelines, all operational before the COVID flu. The question isn't whether they planned a pandemic. The question is what structural safeguard existed to ensure they didn't profit from one. And again, the link is down here. You can go and read the full blog post. It's astonishing stuff. Now we'll go on to what happened yesterday. So with all these revelations, right, from Epstein's files, which show the usual Western bankster class and corporate class all conspiring together to treat us like cattle, yesterday we get an explosion of new insights where actually Epstein was Putin's agent. Big bad Putin. He's a Russian. Talk about a big lie. What a comical psyop this is. All through the Epstein files, Mossad, etc. is mentioned, and we know who Jeffrey was, and we know its connections to Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine, and all the Mossad stuff. But not a word. No, the Russians are coming, apparently. And here Caitlin says it well. Epstein documents have been confirming for months that he was clearly and undeniably an Israeli intelligence operative. So naturally the Western media are running with the story that he worked for Putin. You couldn't make this up. It's like a psyop from a kindergarten intelligence team. But this is what they give to the cattle. Sadly, us. Lots of jokes coming out about this, unsurprisingly. I'll let you read them yourself. I mean, seriously. They are truly treating us like idiots. Now, just a quick note on this guy in the UK. Simon Dixon here is brilliant on geopolitics. I recommend you follow him. Astonishing analyst. But yeah, what is the story with this guy? And Epstein gushed about Tommy and seemed to like Tommy and also made Holocaust jokes with Tommy. I mean, if I did that, I'd be called antiseptic. But apparently this guy is allowed to do it. Far right again. But Epstein's clearly pumping Robinson. How could that be if Robinson seems to be on our side? And with regard to those jokes, disgraceful jokes about that period in history, yeah, Epstein is straight from the hip. Kristallnacht always has the big fire. Come join us at Auschwitz, opening night special. So Epstein is allowed to apparently joke about the Holocaust. In any case, let's move on. No surprises that Rothschild comes up all through the emails and the files. They're discussing all the things that are happening to the world, of course, because they're deeply embedded in them, and decisions relating to them, Ukraine just being one. And we see from Rothschild, Ukraine upheaval should provide many opportunities. Many. Absolute scamsters. Doesn't matter how many people die, it's all about money and power. And indeed, the Rothschilds are mentioned 12,000 times in the Epstein files. Who really ran the show? Whereas Putin and the Russians, I haven't seen anything at all yet. And it's all in the data. Epstein to Thiel, I represent the Rothschilds. This email explains more about how the world actually works than any White House presser or Trump speech. The people at the top don't just know each other. They operate as a single insulated power network. Absolutely, and I'll tell you at the end, you read Tragedy and Hope and you'll know how this stuff works. And as well, World Economic Forum, yeah, that's all in there. Davos can really replace the UN. Cyber, crypto, genetics, international coordination, like my stint at the Trilateral. These are Epstein's word. Issues now need to deal with the distributed trust and internet fallout. So Jeffrey was assigned, I think in 2000, to the Rockefeller Foundation, but Rockefeller, WEF, Bilderberg, Trilateral Commission, Council Foreign Relations, they're all just shells for these globalist bankster scamsters. So they're all just part of the same rotten structure. Unsurprisingly, there's plenty in there as well about profiteering millions off Libya before and after Gaddafi. So the usual suspects, always the same. And interestingly, Zoran Mandami's mother, you saw that recent absurdity going on in New York. Well, his mother is pictured with Epstein and I think Clinton, and all engaged, I think holding Zoran as a baby. So every piece of politics is engineered. No question about it. No conspiracy theory here. The big lie, the big scam, we're all being laughed at. It's time we all talk about this and make people aware. Bitcoin, don't like to have to say this, but there's quite a bit of Bitcoin in there as well, with Epstein claiming to meet the Bitcoin founders. Satoshi's mentioned. As he said, and it's not necessarily true, but 2016, I've spoken to some of the founders of Bitcoin, and he's all into Sharia coin and all this stuff. Always the same crap. And apparently, Epstein, through secretive funding, when Bitcoin Foundation kind of collapsed, put in a whole ton of money into it. So apparently 75% of Bitcoin code and development is since Epstein's money totally took over. So I don't know what backdoors or other shenanigans are going on there, but I would be concerned. I was disappointed with this one, and it's not antiseptic because Alex Jones tweeted this just February the 2nd, got millions of views, so I'm just reporting the news. But apparently Epstein emails are full of anti-white, anti-Christian slurs, and in Alex's words, Jewish supremacist rhetoric. And indeed, I checked, but there are videos about this all over the place, and it's detailed everywhere, apparently talking about the Goyim and how dreadful we are. And here's just some of the examples. I won't even read them out, but it's pretty disturbing stuff. And I wonder how widely this attitude is taken amongst the elites, to be quite honest. Now I'm going to finish with this one because it's a personal note, in a sense. So this guy, Attia, way back in 2018, he came out with a lot of pro-pharma, anti-coronary calcification guff, and I took him on with data on Twitter, so he blocked me. And then afterwards he said, I don't agree with a thing this guy says about heart disease, but I assumed he was just wrong out of poor knowledge or ignorance. Now, I'm nearly 15 years in the science of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, insulin resistance, etc. I've a massive worldwide network, in fairness, and absolutely everything I've said on heart disease is correct. And he's saying he doesn't agree with any of it. So what did he believe then? But in any case, it was clear that Attia, a good few years ago, suddenly switched from focusing on insulin resistance and low-carbon keto and the real science, and switched to statins, PCSK9 inhibitors, and promoting the absurd and ludicrous cholesterol hypothesis. And soon after, he blocked me for trying to call him on it. So I was kind of interested the other day when it turns out he's up to his neck in the Epstein files. 1,700 mentions and emails, etc. And there's articles in all the lamestream about this, and obviously he's in a pickle now. No schadenfreude on my part, but poetic justice, yeah. Here's some of his emails. Apparently, according to Attia, the biggest problem with becoming friends with Epstein is that the life that Epstein leads is so outrageous, and yet Attia can't tell a soul. That's an email, got a fresh shipment. And here, I won't read it out, but apparently it is indeed low carb. Still awaiting results on gluten content though. So joking about this kind of stuff with a known convicted child offender. Here's another one for fun. Attia says, hopefully Epstein's in town when I'm back in 2 weeks. I think this was when he was staying in his New York apartment. I go into Epstein withdrawal when I don't see him. Pretty sick puppy stuff. And needless to say, his Instagram is bombed. Even on older posts, there's comments like these with up to 5,000 likes. So in fairness, Attia and the path he took, he has been the architect of his own destruction. Last point, he just released a mea culpa of sorts. Absolutely hilarious read, but one part I show here, and he actually claims that he asked Epstein about, what was that stuff again you were involved in? And Epstein says, just a bit of prostitution. And Attia said, oh, okay then, that's all right. But of course, everyone knew what Epstein was into. The dogs in the street knew long before Attia met Epstein. So it's farcical. Now, I'm just going to show you can Google for this and see it. Epstein interviewed by Bannon. There's around 15 hours of interviews that Bannon did. And this one's a couple hours long. Very interesting, very financial though. But this was the best comment. Bro casually confirmed every conspiracy theory ever. Now, in fairness, the big conspiracy theories he reveals are more around the Trilateral Commission and all the involvement of the elites together in the financial world. So he wasn't a total idiot to reveal too much. But you might want to watch this video. And to close. So this is my root cause diagram. It's been very popular. I might put a link to it down below so you can discuss it in the pub. But the globalist utopia that the globalist banksters are aiming for many, many decades, there are many strategies they use, and they all have one common link. They all weaken society, and they make this into a cattle mart of the masses. And the whole Epstein thing and all the releases are simply explained. The globalist bankster class, the network in Tragedy and Hope, simply were using Epstein as an agent to ply weak people, greedy people, sociopathic people, and nasty-assed influencers. Ply them with money, and politicians especially, ply them with money, trap them with money and success that could be given to them, doors opened, and if you could manage it, trap them in blackmail. But whatever. Often when someone has taken the 40 pieces of silver and become successful from dealing with the devil, often those people will behave almost as if they're blackmailed. They're going to keep their mouth shut and they're going to always support the hand that fed them. So everything rotten in our world today is A, largely orchestrated, not organic, and B, largely organized and driven by the network, of which Epstein was an agent and a highly successful one. And that explains all the reveals coming out in the Epstein files. So if you really want to know the true history of how we got here and this mess we're in, read Tragedy and Hope for free. It's at tragedyandhope.com. Free audiobook, free book, few hours read, and it'll give you from the 1800s right up to pretty much today what's actually going on in the world. And you'll fully understand Epstein after reading Tragedy and Hope. So guys, we need to spread this link and get everyone reading this book and getting aligned on how the system actually works, and not get distracted by chemtrails and 5G and other stuff. Focus on the true geopolitical history, the facts, and then have a mature discussion with any or everyone to spread understanding about the facts. That is my plea to you. That'll do it, folks. Astonishing stuff, eh? But nothing really surprising, because the network in tragedyandhope.com is alive and well, and it was just tied together somewhat by this fellow Epstein, who is working on behalf of the network, of course. Just another reminder for my app for weight loss, longevity and metabolic health. It'll help so much with people who've had difficulty getting healthy or losing weight before. So check out the homepage, link down below. And for those of you, as gold and silver are now recovering from the bankster-led collapse, selling paper shorts and all that knavery, well, the link is down below to Pure Gold, where you can get a free consultation and I think a period of free storage, though many will want to take possession of their metals themselves, particularly after last week's shenanigans, right? So if you want to explore that further with experts who really know the world of precious metals, and including knowing all about what went on in the last few days, try the link down below and follow up yourself. No financial advice. Up to you. So thank you.